Reporting from Arkham Asylum, this is Gotham Rogues. In this video we count down the 5 greatest Penguin stories ever told. The Penguin, one of Batman's oldest and most iconic rogues. He's become such an integral part of the Bat mythos that it doesn't quite feel the same without him. In this video I list the 5 very best stories the Penguin has to offer. Of course this list is just my opinion, so feel free to write your own in the comments. Also, if you're not a subscriber yet, click that subscribe button now. Let's get this channel to 500 subs before the year is over. Number 5. He Who Laughs Last. A one-shot published in Joker's Asylum, the anthology series that shone the spotlight on an individual rogue every issue. This one was written by Jason Aaron and penciled by Jason Pearson and released in 2008. In the comic, Joker tells a tale of how Penguin met a woman and fell in love. During an inspection of one of his warehouses, Cobblepot sights a beautiful yet sad damsel about to be sold as a sex slave. She pleads for Oswald's help, and for some reason he feels pity for the woman and arranges for her release. Not realizing who exactly Oswald is, the woman named Violet views him as her savior and falls in love with him despite his appearance. Cobblepot too falls in love with Violet, and the two begin a relationship. With the loving company of a good woman, the Penguin is now happier than he's ever been. However, their bliss is threatened when Violet grows more aware of Oswald's dark side. This story excellently portrays the two sides of Penguin. In one moment, he's capable of sickening cruelty and violence, and in the other, given the right circumstances, he can be incredibly gentle and kind. It also explores Oswald's insecurities about his physical appearance, as it's revealed that he goes to great lengths to get his revenge on people who mocked him, hence the title, He Who Laughs Last. But getting the last laugh usually leads to loneliness, a state the Penguin often finds himself in. Number 4. Penguin Triumphant. A special one-shot graphic novel. It was published in 1992 and written by John Ostrander and penciled by Joe Staton. In this story, Penguin realizes that there's no point to crime, as Batman is always there to foul everything up. So Cobblepot decides to go into big business instead and manipulate the stock market. This new angle proves more profitable than any other old scheme he's ever pulled. And with a legit front, the Penguin is able to socialize among the shakers and movers of Gotham, including Bruce Wayne. In 1992, when this comic came out, Penguin wasn't yet portrayed as a mob boss, but more of a master criminal and thief. This story kind of put a spin on a classic depiction of Cobblepot. It's established that with his brilliant mind, Oswald could have reached far greater heights of success if he just didn't waste his genius on thefts and duels with Batman. It's kept him from truly reaching his full potential, and Batman knows it. In the comic, Bruce actually admits that Cobblepot is smarter than him and one of the most clever villains he's ever fought. His genius is also greatly demonstrated, as we're shown how he masterfully manipulates everyone around him into doing what he wants. There's always an ace up his sleeve as well, so while you think you're pulling one over on the Penguin, you're the one who's actually being conned. He's got schemes within schemes. Of course, why he's never bothered with a plot like this before is because in the end, Oswald cares less about money and power and more about the thrill of a heist and being able to show off his brilliance. I think that makes him more interesting than the run-of-the-mill mobster version we often get these days. Number 3. The Penguin Returns. A two-parter published in Batman 548 and 549 in 1997. It was written by Doug Monk and penciled by Kelly Jones. In this story, we meet a Penguin who's tired of just sitting at his booth in the Iceberg Lounge and conducting shady businesses. Oswald misses the old days when he was out there pulling off daring heists and taunting Batman with his criminal genius. So he decides to relive those glory days and embarks upon a crime wave in Gotham all by himself, leaving his trademarks on every scene. Penguin hasn't felt so alive in years, and the beauty is, everybody knows he's the culprit, but there's no actual proof, and he's got his legit casino front to protect him. So by 1997, the Penguin had been reimagined as more of a mob boss character and owner of the Iceberg Lounge Casino. Apparently, just like I kind of do, writer Doug Monk felt already back then that it was a bit boring and he missed the old classic Penguin. Don't get me wrong, the mob boss version can work really well, as a couple of entries on this list proves, but ultimately I prefer old school Cobblepot. This story is, in my opinion, the greatest example of why that version is just more fun. Like I said in the previous entry, the classic incarnation of the Penguin doesn't care about money or power. Sure, those things are nice, but what really motivates him is the thrill of pulling off a complex caper and rubbing it in Batman's face. It's just great to see Oswald at it like this once again, like someone rediscovering their ability to play and just have fun. I'd say that this bittersweet story is the final farewell to the Penguin of old, at least in the comics, and what a grand way for him to go. Number 2. Kane and Prejudice. A 5-issue miniseries, it was written by Greg Hurwitz, penciled by Szymon Kudranski, and published in 2011. This comic paints a fascinating portrayal of the character of the Penguin. We're shown that he's the most feared crime leader in Gotham, and for good reason, because if you cross him in any way, he will most definitely make you suffer. At the same time, we also see his private, kinder side, as he tends to his dying mother and meets a blind woman and falls in love. Flashbacks also reveal Oswald's childhood, and we learn that because of his physical appearance, Cobblepot was relentlessly bullied and abused, not only by other children, but by his own family as well. The only person to show kindness and love toward little Oswald was his sainted mother. Thus, in turn, she was the only one he cared for. Being physically weak, Oswald learned at an early age that he had to use cunning and planning to defeat his enemies, setting him on the course to become the master schemer he is now. Despite not landing the number 1 spot on this list, I'd say that this is the definitive Penguin story. It's the greatest character study we've ever gotten on him. Sure, it is similar to the Joker's Asylum issue in many ways. Penguin dates a woman, we're shown 2 sides of him, his insecurities and thirst for revenge are explored. But this story goes far more in depth into all these ideas. The Penguin is an evil man who commits unspeakable acts of horror, yet we don't really hate him because the comic is told through his eyes. It's like letting the devil tell his side of the story, and in doing so, we kind of understand him and even sympathize. At the same time, he frightens us to the bone, but that's why he's such a fascinating character and why this miniseries is so great. It's very grey, with no clear black and whites. In one moment, we want Batman to just come and put Cobblepot away forever, but then in the next, we're actually rooting for Oswald. If you're going to read just one Penguin story, then you should make it this one. It definitely features the best portrayal of the modern Oswald Cobblepot. And now for the greatest Penguin story ever told. Number 1. Lovebird. Written by Max Allan Collins and penciled by Norm Breyfogle, this is a one-shot published in Batman Annual number 11 in 1987. In the story, the Penguin is reformed and released from prison on parole. It turns out that during his stay in jail, Oswald had befriended socialite Dovina Partridge through the personal column of the Ornithological News. They then became pen pals and eventually fell in love. Now out and about, Cobblepot begins his courtship of Dovina and plans to propose to her. In order to prove himself to his lady, Penguin sets up an umbrella factory, aiming to make an honest living instead of stealing. Of course, Batman doesn't buy into any of this and believes that Cobblepot is just hatching some new scheme. With the Dark Knight on him like a hawk, will the Penguin be able to go through with his plans of redemption? Maybe a bit of an odd choice to put on the number 1 slot, as I know some people think this story is goofy, but I just absolutely love it. It's not just my favorite Penguin story, but one of my favorite comics period. I must have read it like 20 times or something. So yes, here we are again with a love story. I guess Oswald really is the romantic type. But unlike the other 2 Penguin falls in love scenarios on this list, this comic is not dark and depressing in any way. In fact, it's the exact opposite. An adorable enjoyable, upbeat, feel-good story. That's of course why many think it's silly. I, on the other hand, don't mind some of my Batman stories being light-hearted. Not everything has to be The Dark Knight Returns. But what's truly so great about this comic is that this is the most sympathetic Penguin we've ever seen in the post-crisis continuity. Hell, maybe ever. Just like in the animated series episode Birds of a Feather, which must have been inspired by this story by the way, Oswald really has turned over a new leaf. He isn't plotting some grand con. Cobblepot truly intends to walk the straight and narrow and marry Davina. Batman is also played up in a fun way here as the paranoid skeptic who refuses to buy into Penguin's talk when even Commissioner Gordon has. But you can't really blame him though, because this ain't the first time Penguin's been reformed, although it is the first it's for real. So there you have it. Those are the 5 best Penguin stories ever told, in my opinion. Remember, Arkham Asylum awaits you in the next video.